Want to have anything they'd like to confess?
That AM 1400 KVFD.
That's right. I'm the Doctor of Truth, and I'm broadcasting from the Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters studio. Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters is at 612 South 32nd Street in Fort Dodge. You may contact Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters by calling 515-576-6481. I got to find out their Facebook address. It's probably not that difficult. If you typed in Blue Ribbon Pelham Waters to Facebook, I'm sure you'd find it. Okay, we have a real blast from the past with us here today. Denny Plautz of the Fort Dodge Growth Alliance. Hi, Denny.
Morning, Mike.
Good to see you after so long.
Yeah, I'd like to confess that I was once on this program before.
Yes, you were. Well, I had COVID, and the whole world went crazy last year, as you well know. And we're just kind of pulling out of it now. I don't know what this Delta thing is, but I don't want to know either.
Yeah. No, our office, it's about the 1st of June. We're just starting to, what I would consider, get back to normal, where everybody's in the office every day. And we're starting to put our committee work back together. We did no committee work except by virtual during COVID. So.
Yeah, I saw Kelly today for the first time in a long time.
Yeah, it's nice to see people again.
Yeah, it is.
I'm a face-to-face guy. I mean, I would rather sit here like we're doing than do it over the phone and virtually. And so
I don't get young married couples. One of them's in one room, one of them's the other, and they text each other. I don't get that.
Yeah. Well, my son, I would call him, and he wouldn't answer. And I asked my wife about it, and she said, "Oh no,
you got to text him."
Yeah, you got to text him or he won't answer.
What's up with that? I don't know,
that. But I started doing it, and she's right.
She's right. Yeah.
Of course, now he calls me more, so he's. I think he knows I like that better.
Oh yeah. He need money or something?
No. I mean, believe it. I think the kid's growing up.
Good.
He just calls to say hi and how you doing? Anything new? I'm on my way to the gym.
That's always great and makes you feel funny when you look at your son and you realize you're looking at a man.
Yeah.
He doesn't need you anymore.
Yeah.
He might ask your advice out of respect, but really he's going to figure out his own way. And that's, at the same time, makes you feel funny. It makes you feel very proud and very glad. So
a friend of mine and I were talking about our kids. It's been some time ago. We were probably late 50s or something.
Yeah.
And
that long ago.
Yeah. And the conversation centered around, well, I don't feel that old. I don't look, what do our kids think of us? And the guy said to me, he said, well, when your dad was your age now, how did you look at him? And all of a sudden, bingo, it just hit me. And
my dad was a heavy cigarette smoker. I've said this on the air several times. He would not understand a world where you can't smoke in bars and gay people can get married. He just wouldn't figure that out.
It was a whole nother generation.
Oh, whole different generation.
There's been so much change. There has been so much change in
God.
The last, since well before my father passed away, which was back in the 80s.
Mm-hmm. I think the internet in the mid-90s, Bill Horn mentioned this once, that the internet, where he actually could call up his farm field on satellite and find out what kind of ground he had in each little plot of land. And then, of course, there were devices that allowed you to travel anywhere in any big city. Before Google Maps, I don't know what kind of things we had. I remember I had a little camera or something on my dashboard, or a little device on my dashboard that showed me where to go like Google Maps does. But those things started to change the world big time.
Well, I remember, again, back when we were doing sort of cell Fort Dodge calls, we'd go to different cities and we'd cold call and set up meetings with folks. And we always had to go to a car because somebody had to read the map and the other guy had to drive. But I mean,
there's a good example.
Yeah, and we would be in places like Newark where it's a mess and you're on a 10-lane road.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's like, a couple poor Iowa kids, one Iowa, one Minnesota, we'd have crashed and burned if we hadn't had two of us trying to get around. And
drove through New York. Well, not nearly as much as my brother-in-law did, but I drove through Philadelphia, New York City a couple times when I was driving a truck. And you come up on these signs and there's a stack of signs. This highway, this way, this highway points to the left. This one goes off at a corner or kind of at an angle somewhere. You look at 10 of them, and you don't even know which one is yours.
Yeah.
Anyway, we had Chuck Grassley over with Growth Lions. That was good.
Yeah, it was a nice question answer. I thought there were some good questions raised. You had some, I think you were asking about.
Well, in light of President Biden's emphasis on climate change, he seems to want to restructure the way we do agriculture. And I would point to Waters of the USA as an example where the government would demand to control water on 97% of the land in the United States. Ladies and gentlemen, did you hear that?
Oh, I mean, up through every drainage ditch.
Yeah, exactly. And Senator Grassley mentioned county supervisors and their concern about drainage ditches and all of these things. And I that sort of change is not, and I think Chuck Grassley said this, he didn't say it exactly this way, but it's just not in our culture. It's not in, it doesn't mean that we're a free people if the government can come onto your property and tell you how to manage your water. Now, I mean, there are exceptions to that rule. I mean, farmers have been having little drainage district fights since the state was formed, but you know what I'm saying.
Yeah.
Grassley sure did as well.
Well, it's hard to balance where the public interest conflicts with the personal interests, and
yeah.
I mean, I thought that was horrible legislation, but
horrible, absolutely.
But I think anymore, to some degree, we're not giving our citizens the benefit of the doubt on creativity and ethics. And
yeah, that's called paternalism. Yeah, we don't care for paternalist thought here. Let us be who we are. That's let us govern ourselves. Don't we have? Did you hear of federalism or study it when you were in college? Because I think I did.
Sure. Yeah.
In other words, the states kind of get to run their own business unless the federal interest is at stake.
Yeah, I don't know. It's there's so much change in the world, to predict where everything is going is really not possible.
Yeah, that's right. But I would, there were a lot of really great questions asked over there.
Yeah, it was a good crowd, good group, I thought.
Andy Reid was there from Green State, which
Right.
used to be First American. He had some, I don't remember what Andy's questions were, but I was impressed. I talked with him after the meeting about being on the air with me so he could amplify them a little bit.
Well, he had questions about broadband. And,
Yeah.
If the city of Fort Dodge is going to implement a broadband system, they're going to have to borrow the money someplace.
Yes, they are.
There were several bankers there, both of whom I'm only assuming, that they have been approached by the city maybe to discuss their interest, in helping the city finance a broadband system. I don't know that. I'm just talking off the cuff here, but
Well, I think why wouldn't we want to do business with the bank
Sure.
that is in town? So that makes perfect sense.
Yeah, and the question will be, one, are they big enough? And two, is the broadband that's being proposed financially bankable? In other words, the trouble with broadband historically has been you ask people to put up the money to finance something that currently has no revenue.
Andy brought up that point.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and there's no assets to place a lien on yet. And that's not traditional banking. When you do that, that's more venture capitalism.
Yes.
So that that's one of the difficulties for any city starting out with a new utility system, let's say, of any kind.
Was David Furyk there this morning Chuck
David-
Grassley was over the Growth Alliance today, and Denny and I were there, as well as obviously several others. But I didn't see
He was
David.
not there. I talked to David beforehand because I had sent him an article that I frankly did not read, but it was on broadband that talked about government financed, and I thought maybe it could be helpful to him. So I called him to make sure he got it, and he said he had a conflict today or he would have been there.
Okay. Well, he's supposed to be here today
Okay.
at 3:30, so I look forward to that.
Good.
Furyk's pretty sharp. We did.
He is sharp.
We did all right when we recruited him to this town
Yep.
because a guy like that, as sharp as he is.
I think he was. I was on that. I don't know. I wouldn't say it's a selection committee. That was the council, but on an interview committee. And at the time, we interviewed 3 people, and he was clearly my number one pick for all kinds of reasons, which there's no reason to go into today after the fact. But I do think I was right in that I thought his he's sharp, but his personality was a good fit.
Yeah.
His approach was a good fit, especially at the time for Fort Dodge. So
Yeah.
it's worked out well.
His position, and I know he hates this and he would never really want to discuss this, but his position is a political position, more so than yours. You're dealing with political figures and they all have different interests, all those sorts of things.
Well, it is, but in the way most people take the word political, I don't think it should be political. It's political because it's appointed and hired by elected officials. But on the other hand, his job is to find ways to do what a city council or a bunch of elected people want to do.
Yeah, because that varies, as we know.
He may completely disagree, but he's not the decision maker, and he should present the best evidence he can to make his case and make a recommendation to them.
Yeah.
But too often people like him or me get in trouble by making those things personal, where even though we think it's the right thing to do, we're not elected to make the decision. But yet, if we hang on to it, it's just like a council person. Let's say that the vote becomes 6-1 to do something.
Mm-hmm.
It's not the prerogative of that council member that voted 1 to go out and make whatever they did fail.
Mm-hmm.
Then they've got it. Then they've got to turn around and decide, how do I make the best of all of this for the community? In my opinion, if you're a good council person, don't hang on to it forever and try to destruct what somebody else had the majority of votes for.
Exactly. But that's just not the way it is.
Well, it's not human nature.
It isn't human nature.
And I know that, but I'm just saying, in my mind, and that's just my opinion, in a perfect world, that would be how it would work. And when you sign on, you have it'd be like being on a bank board. You may suggest that a bank board go one direction, they may go another, but you have a fiduciary responsibility to that board to make sure that company can make as much money as they can. Therefore, you can't go out and try to self-destruct and blow up the bank just because you didn't get your way.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So Denny Plautz is our guest today on 1400 KBFT, the voice of Fort Dodge. This is the time we allow for Growth Alliance, and from what I understand, we're going to have more and more members of the Growth Alliance come on to talk about their service or product.
As a member benefit.
Member benefit, which is just fine. It's a terrific idea. I've been trying to put together a way to find new entrepreneurs, people who have adjusted to the 21st century economy in whatever way.
Yeah. And we'd like to get people on that are a little bit unique, or maybe that are new.
That's fine. We're all good.
So and then, when we have, I'll continue to be here when we have some news, or Jill or Kelly, but it isn't like every 7 days we have something brand new either. Although I will say, just recently, you and I have not talked about CJ's recent expansion again.
That's good. Explain that a little bit, will you, please?
Well, they're spending another $50 million out there and bringing in another product line. It's going to allow them to be more flexible. They added 25 people. And that's interesting too, Mike, because you and I have talked before about a lot of these companies in the recent year or two have been very quietly adding people and production, even though there's no big fanfare and a big expansion.
Right.
CJ, for example, now is about 220 people out there. They were 180 when they started.
Mm-hmm.
They spent $330 million to build that plant and have spent $71 million on expansion since then, plus the tens of millions they spend every year, modifying the plant. Cargill is another one that, if you recall, when Tate and Lyle first started, and when they started up, they were around 130. They're up around 200, a little over 200 people now.
Mm-hmm.
So, I mean, there has been some growth. We're going to have, I can't say any more than I'm going to say, but in the next couple of weeks, you will see a couple more projects that will hit the Board of Supervisors and the City Council table. Different kinds of things, but both very good. One of them huge for us, I believe.
That's big news we got in the mall.
The mall, the $17 million approval out of the $18 million that we asked for was really big as anybody in Iowa. And, now they have to produce. It's not like somebody gives them a check unless we,
Dang.
Well, what will have to be done now is they will have to produce new retail sales tax or hotel motel tax equal to that $17 million, which will then be rebated back.
How much time do they have to do that? That's a lot of money.
Oh, it's like 20 years.
Oh, well, we should be able to
Yeah.
do that, shouldn't we?
Yeah. But no, it's a huge deal for us.
Yeah.
Because that will, and again, Chad Schaefer or David are probably better people to speak to it than I am. But,
Right.
That's what's going to fund all of those pertinent, ancillary, extra, cosmetic, aesthetic,
Yeah.
quality of life things that would go into the mall.
I wanted to ask you a question. I haven't seen you for a while. We had a big fight over the Crosstown Connector, and we got it done. And the whole idea of the Crosstown Connector, as I recall, was to reinvigorate downtown business on Central Avenue.
The Crosstown Connector.
The Crosstown Connector.
Well, in part, that was half of it.
That was part. Well, we haven't really seen that sort of comeback for the downtown area.
No, but if you look at, I don't know if Chris Patrick's been on recently, but these grant programs that they've gotten into recently, where the 1100 block had all those improvements made.
Yes.
Now there's another one down on 800 block, I think, being done. There is quite a bit of activity down there. Cosmetically, visually, you're right. You don't necessarily see it, but I think there's more activity down there than we've had in a long time.
Well, cosmetically, yes, but is there revenue producing businesses down there that weren't there 10, 15 years ago? I mean, that would tell us that the Crosstown Connector was in fact good.
Well, yeah, and I don't think the Crosstown Connector was strictly to help it was part of a cleanup effort.
Okay.
And part of a connection. It's only the second of two roads where you can drive from east to west without making a right turn, And I think I had a conversation recently about workforce, and we were talking about the things that are creating a workforce difficult. Some can be impression, social media, crime, education,
right.
Whatever. And I think one of the things, first of all, I think we've had a hard time combating the image of a high crime area, which
Dirty Dodge, yeah,
which is not the case. But I think in part that has hung on so long because we didn't look very well. And I think the fact that when you drive down Fifth Avenue South or the Crosstown Connector, and you see all these green lots as opposed to the junk that was there before, and then
that's a good thing.
And you see the new paving,
yeah,
and it gives a whole different feel and look. And I think a lot of this is probably going to do as much to changing our stereotype as anything. And I hadn't really thought about that until, a few months ago.
Mhm.
But I think that's clearly true. And it's based on talking to people that I talk to that come back and say, oh, this town looks like a whole different place.
Oh, it does. It looks a lot different.
And, if a place looks bad and looks like a crime area, it's going to be how it looks as an indicator.
Yes.
And I think the city has done a lot to help with the image just through the physical cleanup and the physical improvements that they've been making. So
Bill Horn used to, we're running out of time, and I do want to bring this up. Bill Horn and you used to tell me that once we got the crossroads of global innovation going, there'd be a lot of over-the-fence companies coming. Have we seen that many over-the-fence companies?
well, CJ is one.
Well, CJ Bio.
That was
Cargill,
the first one.
Yeah, they were those places were there, and now at the time, once we had Cargill and CJ Bio, we expected over the fence companies. Have we seen?
Well, and we're working across the transload facility is one of them that we're working on now. We lost one during COVID that had done test borings, done design, done everything. And then their parent company, which was a Japanese company, pulled the plug on it because they had bad financials during COVID. And they walked away after spending, I don't know how many hundreds of thousands of dollars out here.
Well, that's wow.
There will be one that is a result that'll be on the supervisor agenda in, I don't know, within 2 weeks. That is an outgrowth of what's going on in the park. It's not going to be in the park, but it's because of the park. And we'll talk about that in 2 weeks. I'll be back on.
Sure.
And it will have been on the supervisor's table that morning and will have been on the city council table the night before on Monday night.
All right.
The other thing, though, along those lines, if I got a couple minutes here.
Yes, go ahead.
One thing I have noticed, retail and restaurants and service business were hit during COVID.
Yes, they were.
Other than the one example I gave you, I haven't really seen any downturn in any primary sector during COVID. CNS Products had a record year, of course, feeding birds. Coke announced their $140 million expansion starting this fall and next summer.
That's great, isn't it?
CJ was another $50 million. And as they said at that groundbreaking, it's the start of a number of plans they have out here. If you thought about it, you'd probably figure out another one that we're working with, but I can't say what it is.
That's all right.
But
you are so mysterious, Bob. You've always been very mysterious.
Not my lane. I try to stay in my lane. So I can't say that our list of prospects, with the exception of that one, is any different than it was before COVID.
Yeah.
But for example, there's a project that just went to Eddyville by Cargill. It's a biodiesel facility.
Really?
And that we talked about 3 years ago, but that's been in development for 7 years and just got announced here recently. And it could not go here for a variety of reasons. But the kinds of stuff that we're working on, these are 5 to 10 year deals, from start to turning a spade of dirt.
Right.
And all I can say is there's more going on now than I've ever experienced here.
Does the Coke expansion, does that mean more jobs or?
No, it won't be, but what it will be, maybe one or two, but it'll be an upgrade in their facility, which I think is as important or even more than the jobs, because it makes that plant more sustainable and less likely to go away and more likely to have added production and jobs in the future. If you're going to spend $140 million to upgrade a plant for environmental, for controls, for whatever, you plan on using it for the future.
Denny Plautz of the Ford Dodge Growth Alliance has been our guest. He's the CEO. Thank you, Denny.
Thank you, Mike.
All right, this is AM. Whoop, here, I got to do this first.